Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm your host, Paul Guyon. Most business owners think they have a pricing problem. What they actually have is a system problem. But before we ever get to pricing, there's something much deeper going on in how we think about money in the first place. Uh, and my guest, Linda, who's a return guest, welcome, Linda.
Thank you for having
I'm
me
going to
back,
tell you,
Paul.
of course, it's an honor. Linda is a money clarity catalyst and a pricing power strategist. And I had to practice that before we started. She's the founder of Some Solutions and author of the new book, The Money Conversation. She helps entrepreneurs like you and me rebuild pricing power, install financial clarity, and create systems that actually support sustainable growth. And why this episode matters to me is a lot of founders are really working their butts off, but inside systems that don't hold up. We were just talking about that a minute ago.
Mm.
I lost my job over that, in fact, many years ago. But even before systems break, something else is off. How they think about money, how they hold their boundaries, how they define value. And we're going to get into that. So this conversation is about what's underneath that stuff. And that's what the book is all about, The Money Conversation. And it's a beautiful book. I'm going to hold it up in front of me for those of you who are watching. Check it out. It's on Amazon and a bunch of places. We'll talk about how you can get a free chapter. Because of that layer, once that layer underneath all of that stuff is clear, systems can actually hold up and you can actually go into a conversation about money and not having any fear, because a lot of us have fear about that conversation. So,
So
Linda Hunt, welcome. It's great to have you back. I really appreciate you coming on. And I love you. I love your book. Thanks for sending it to me.
of
And
course, Paul, thank you
so,
so much for having me back. I appreciate it.
yeah, so your book is called The Money Conversation, as I
Mhm.
said. When you say that, what are
Mhm.
people actually getting wrong about money in their business?
So the money conversation, in a nutshell, replaces persuasion with professional alignment. If I could say that, that's basically in a nutshell. It helps professionals explain their work clearly and whether an engagement truly fits. Right. So that's the crux of what we're doing with the money conversation. Money is an emotionally charged subject, right? In our personal
Yeah.
lives, and that carries forward into our business. And typically when we're having heaviness around pricing, it usually breaks in three different spots in the conversation, which is what this book is about, inside the work, which we touch on a bit in the book. And then it also breaks in the structure, in the process, right? There's the process isn't holding it up. You're holding up the business. So
Mhm.
the this book focuses on the conversation and helping people just create some processes, get some help holding them so that here's the thing. You said talking about money's uncomfortable. It's still going to be uncomfortable, but if you have a framework that you can rely upon, it's going to help you build confidence and it's going to help you strengthen that muscle.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with one of my guests a couple of weeks ago, Malcolm Reed, Sr., and he was talking about the enrollment process. And
Okay.
we were talking about, yeah, having a structure, like you say, having a systematic way of talking about your money gets you off the hook. I think that's my opinion. It takes the pressure off if
It
you can
does.
just lead them through and you show them your value and they go, wow, I can
Hmm.
really do that. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
do that. You show them that value and they said, hey, would you like help with that?
And this is one of my sticking points. Our value has nothing to do with the services we provide, right? Like our
Right.
self-worth, and a lot of people entangle that, especially service people, because our is typically our heart, our voice, it's our passion. And it becomes emotionally blurred and we try to we feel like we're pricing ourselves. When you talk about the transformation,
Hmm.
that's what's giving you that's what's giving you the process. That's what's giving you a step back, right? From thinking your service is so personal. So you want to focus on the transformation and you want to focus on how you're going to walk your prospect through how you're going to get them there so they have a visual, because oftentimes people don't say yes when you're in a prospect conversation because they don't have enough clarity.
Hmm. The prospect doesn't have enough clarity because you haven't been able to articulate that transformation,
That
right?
is
Yeah. And so
correct.
that's,
Correct. Yes.
and so what you're saying when you say you're holding up, really what you're saying is, I think, is that you're able to articulate how they're going to be from where they are now, how they're going to go through this journey, and they're going to have this result.
That they're
And
looking for.
that's what they're looking for.
Correct. Because people don't buy hours. They don't want to buy time. They
No.
want to buy outcomes. They want to buy
Yeah.
results. And it really depends on your service, right? Some services are outcome driven and some services are results driven. And it really depends. And like in my work, in my own consulting work, in my own company, it depends on the type of engagement we're in. So if it's inside the accounting department, right? Or we have an accounting services department, that is results driven. Every month they want to see their financial reports. But
Mm.
say I'm working with a client and their financial systems or like the financial operations isn't speaking to the accounting department. So we have to fix that. That is outcome driven. Like we're looking to get all of the feeders communicating and the data accurate. So it's more of a, technically you can argue that it's the same thing, but when I'm talking to a client about that, I'm talking more about outcomes.
Yeah, and outcomes, you can tie an outcome, I think, better to it's real. You're right. It is really closely related, but the outcome is how they're going to feel when they've
Yes,
gone through this process. The result isn't as emotionally packed,
correct.
and that can help hold up your marketing message.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
True,
Yeah,
too.
because we're all taught like talk to the pain point, right? Talk to
Yeah,
solve the problem that the person's having. And you can do that in one of two ways. You can talk to it as an outcome or you can talk to it as a result. And I think it really does depend on the type of service that you're providing and targeting that message.
yeah. Like a plumber, the plumber, the outcome you want to have is you don't want to be standing in water.
Exactly.
Like we are in northern Michigan right now. We've
Oh
had
my gosh, I've seen that.
amazing
Yes.
floods. We have a bridge that was washed out, and
Oh,
it's a
okay.
bridge that we take on our way to church and on our way to my mother-in-law's house. So we
Uh-huh.
have to go way around just to get
Wow.
around, and it's traffic is backed up, and of course it's summer. We have Cherry Festival coming up. It's gonna be crazy. It's already starting.
Oh
It's,
my goodness. Yeah, yeah,
but yeah,
I saw those images this morning. Yeah, so the results driven there, get the bridge fixed.
and it's
That's
gonna
the
take
big one.
about 6 months, I think, to get that fixed.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we heard that it was already we're getting off topic, but we heard that it was already on the docket to get replaced. So they
Okay.
knew it needed remediation. But yeah,
Mm, boy.
one flood took it out.
Yeah.
So getting back to our real problem that's underneath, a lot of people think they have a pricing problem, right? That's,
Correct.
gosh, I need to raise my rates, but I'm afraid to do it. And that's I can't raise my rates. Whatever
Yes.
they're thinking those things. From your perspective, what's actually going on underneath all that?
So basically, they're coming to the table with a money story. And I lived this, Paul. So like everything in this book is a lived experience. And when we have to raise our rates, it's a couple things is we're coming into it going, if I charge, let me back up because I keep wanting to get this out and I'm just going to say it. We often know what our number is that we want to raise our rates to. Okay, so
Mhm.
knowing the number's not the problem. The problem is when so this is where it breaks in the conversation. So when we start to talk about it, so you and I are in an exchange and I go, and I know I have to raise your rates, Paul. So I'm sitting here and there's all these thoughts running through my head because I know this is where I'm going in this conversation. And then the
Mhm.
moment presents itself and I hesitate and I don't say it because the thoughts in my head are saying things like, he'll leave. He's been a longtime client. He's been a good client. How could you raise your rates on him when you have an agreement with him already? Those are the kinds of thoughts that we have in there.
Mm.
And this is self-talk these are limiting beliefs, self-talk that we're probably not even aware that we have oftentimes. And it goes back to how we were raised around money, all of that stuff. But the other things that could be coming up too for some people is who do I think I am? Like, oh, who are they going to think I am if I charge that much money? Because there's a doubt between the price that you want to charge and you actually delivering that service. You have a disbelief somewhere that maybe your service isn't quite worth that. So it could be a myriad of things, right? It could be a variety of
Mm.
things. And I can guarantee you it's probably all of those things. And what we need to do is we need to, I'm not about money mindset. Okay. And I'm not saying that money mindset is wrong, but mindset alone is not going to change this, because you can do affirmations and you can money mindset this till the cows come home. But what works is if you back up and you create a process. Okay. The process I create and I talk about in the book is when you're raising your rates, you actually do it if with existing clients through an email. And you basically give pre-notice and you say things like you put in the email. There's even scripts in this book. And you say things like,
Mm.
based on our work together, you've been a trusted client, or whatever. You open with a sentence and then you say, effective on this date, we are going to be raising our rates. So you give a 30 to 45 day window, you raise your rates. And the thing about this process is you're not asking for permission. You are just doing it.
Mhm.
So with existing clients, I encourage people to do it via email. It works. Nobody, if you think about it, when you go to a restaurant, do you remember when we had the egg crisis last year? We had
Mhm.
the egg crisis. When we went into restaurants didn't apologize to us for making an omelet $15. They just did it. So there's no difference for service people. And you just want to go ahead and raise your rates. Now, with new clients, it's easy. They don't know what you
Yeah.
charge. So that's
Right.
the easy part. But the thing is, it's like you create the plan, you write the template, you write the email, you send it. And then if someone has a question, because sometimes clients they will call you up. I've never had one of those conversations where someone's pushed back on me after I said I had a rate increase. I don't
Mm.
believe it. I've had questions when scope changed, and that's a different topic, right?
That is a different
That's a
topic.
different topic, but never when I've raised my rates. And
Mhm.
typically but here's the other thing. The second part of this process is you want to raise your rates regularly, at least once a year, even if you don't need to, because service
Mm.
people oftentimes don't raise their rates until it's too late. Yeah.
Yeah. And when it's too late, it's when your costs are overrunning your margin
Yes.
and you don't even know it. And you're wondering what you're left with at the end of the month, if you're even watching that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I think that that's getting into understanding your number, which I think a lot of people have a good sense of what that is. And I actually have a
Mhm.
new diagnostic coming out probably next month called Why Your Pricing Still Isn't Working, even though you're
Mhm.
charging enough, because most people are charging enough, but the pricing is still breaking. And
Hmm.
and it breaks for different reasons. It breaks for different reasons.
Explain that.
Yeah, so it breaks. There's three main categories that it breaks in. One is the conversation, right? So it's when you're not articulating it, just like we talked about.
Mm.
My rates, you don't communicate that. Or you're in the conversation and you discount. So say I go to you, Paul, that job, here's what we're going to do for you. And it's $3,000. But then I suddenly go, but I can do that for you for 2,500. I automatically fill the space and discount because I perceived that you hesitated, right? So we
Right.
oftentimes rush in to fill that. So that's how it breaks. Those are examples of how it breaks in the conversation.
Yeah. You should just shut up.
Easier said than done sometimes, especially when you're newer or you feel uncomfortable talking about the money. And really, again, if you're uncomfortable talking about what you do and how you do it and what you charge for it, where you have to practice is talking about the transformation to yourself, right? Get it down, talking about the transformation of your services for your clients. And I don't know about you, Paul, but I know for me personally, I actually had to ask other people, what is it? What is it I do? In a nutshell, I was saying, what is it I do for you? But what is it What benefit are you getting? And they told me things that were very different than what I thought I was doing for them. So it's always good to get that feedback from colleagues. It's good to get that feedback from your clients and listen to that because they're using the language that that resonates. So they're gonna give you a
Hmm.
template for the language. But and
Right.
yes, you probably do know what you do for clients to a degree, but they will give you they will give you that word or that phrase that really resonates. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my clients told me that they felt empowered.
That's wonderful.
They felt empowered because they couldn't do the things that I taught them how to do, and the things that I provided them
Mhm.
enabled them to do that. Which
Yeah.
is empowering is a woo kind of word in my world. But that's what they said. They said they felt empowered. Oh, it wasn't empowered.
Okay.
It was equipped.
I was gonna say, I was getting a sense of it because I know a little bit about what you do, but I was getting a sense of you actually gave them a solution which
Yeah.
allowed them to have that. So I could see where I might come back to you and say, "Oh, Paul, I feel empowered now that you've installed that process," but it's equipped. I like that.
Yeah,
You
I do too. And
Yeah,
so that's what you're talking about. So when you
that's
get
what I'm talking
feedback
about.
from your client,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you can take that back to the bank and put it in your marketing messaging.
Yes.
So that,
And
and you can use that to raise your prices too.
you can use that to raise your prices. You can use that to in prospect conversations, right? So we talked about in the conversation, we also talked about it breaks in the work, inside the work. So once you start delivering your services, there's scope creep, right? There's you
Always.
over delivering. So
Mm.
that's the second place that pricing breaks. And I'm calling it pricing is breaking. It's breaking because it's not supporting you and your business because of the way you're executing. Okay. And then the third
Mhm.
place it breaks is the structure. And that's your processes, right? So I know for a fact that you have a process that help people convert leads within like respond to leads and convert that into revenue within minutes. That is please, I probably did not do that justice, but that
Yeah,
is, yeah, that in a core of what you
in a
do
nutshell.
in a nutshell. And yeah, there's much more to it, I'm sure. And basically, that's a process, right? That's a process that
Mhm.
holds the business up
Yeah.
versus the owner or someone on the team fixing a process is broken when you're band-aiding things or you're holding things up or there's one person where roles get blurred and there's one person everything falls on. So oftentimes
The
in
hero.
the hero, yeah, the hero with the invisible work who ends up getting resentful and walks out the door. And we don't
Right.
want that in a small business. Small businesses, if there's not enough clarity around the process or the structure, it's going to default back to the person who cares the most, and that's the owner.
Hmm.
And the owner has way too much going on. They're wearing way too many hats. So it's super important that you're clear in your process. And then you also define the definition of done so that everyone in the
Hmm.
company can elevate to to the level, the same expectation. And that was, I remember when I first started creating processes and working with companies and architecting things, I was like, huh, that's not the results I wanted. And then I recognized that the missing piece in creating an SOP, right, is the definition of done. Well, what does
Hmm.
done look like? Because everyone, that's you don't want a process to be left to perception or subjection.
Yeah. And some service professionals, myself included, um, they they do everything custom. Everything's custom. When you do that, you often have scope creep, which is a margin killer,
It is.
revenue killer. So what you can do though, and you talked about this on the other episode, the previous episode, which you should go and check out because it was really good. You talked about having your pricing structured so that you can have a base and you can have
Yes.
add-ons that
Yes.
clearly, and maybe if there's a per project rate or something like that, additional scope, you lay that out so that you can still be custom, but you have
Correct.
you have a base layer. Can you kind of
Yeah.
shed some light on that?
Absolutely. So basically, yeah, we all want to be able to say we're providing like some kind of customization to our clients. However, there is a core set of services that you're providing, Paul, or any service provider in order to do a quality job. So that is where
Right.
so what you want to do, because you're doing that for every single client. Though there's that, let's just call that the vanilla ice cream layer. And
Mm.
that for every single client. So you want to price that, put pricing around that, put some standard pricing around that. And then what you want to do is have the ability to, maybe you have, and you maybe in your work, I'm going to call it a change order because it reminds me of the residential services where I have a contractor and they're putting a roof on my house and all of a sudden they find some damage. So they're very good about stopping and coming back and saying to you, "Hey, we've got to replace the plywood." My husband was a contractor, so I know all about this. Hey,
Yeah.
we have to replace the plywood. It's Here's a change order. It's going to cost X. So I think in your business you could do that as well.
Yeah.
That is a process that holds up your pricing. But here's the thing, you've got to let the person know up front, your client know up front that, hey, we're going to start out with this scope of services. As we move along, we may hit this trigger, or we may hit this roadblock. If we hit this roadblock, we might have to change the scope, expand the scope, do whatever. I'm going to let you know when that happens. And
Mhm.
we may have to adjust pricing, or we might be able to absorb it into the project. We won't know until we get there. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is having set add-ons. So for example, in my accounting division, we actually we do a diagnostic and then we do quote unquote cleanup work. But if I'm implementing, say, a software tool, say Bill.com or something like that, I have an add-on fee. Okay, and everyone we work with, that's a required tool. And then I charge a flat rate fee for it. And then the team goes off and implements it. So that's a variety of ways that you can handle things like that.
Yeah. And unclear offers, like you were just talking, we're circling around that.
Mm.
If you have to explain, if you can't explain it to like an 8-year-old, you don't get it. Of
Right.
course, maybe that's not quite right, but you got to be able
Well,
to clearly say what it is that they're going to get, how they're going to get there, and what
yes,
the outcome is going to be, or what the transformation is going to be.
correct.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
So,
because if they don't understand that, then they're not going to say yes. They're going to you're going to get a no.
yeah, for sure. Now, some people who love their craft, they're technicians. Maybe they learned a skill at a corporate job, and then they said, I'm going to go off on my own.
Hmm.
And they go out and they do this work, and they're a perfectionist. And so they deliver more than what they promised, which is delivery drift. Can you
Yeah.
poke at that a bit?
Yeah. So that's over delivery. So that's breaking inside the work. So what's happening is they're, and that also gets related back a little bit to self-worth, Paul, right? So
Hmm.
you're providing your service. And there's two schools of thought here. It's like you don't think what you're doing is enough, or you're the technician who loves what you do and you think you're going to wow them. And I can guarantee you that in both instances, your client doesn't know the difference,
Right.
because what you're giving them, they don't have a barometer to measure that against typically.
Mm.
Or maybe they do, it just depends. But I can guarantee you all that over delivery, all that invisible work that you're doing is not being recognized by the customer because you're not bringing it to their attention.
Yeah.
How you address delivery, over delivery, is it's really about being boundaried. So this comes into the sovereignty, right? So this becomes into self-leadership. And you have to systematize how you're delivering your product. And it also goes
Hmm.
back to that base core set of services that we talked about, where I said you want to price that in a way that allows you to deliver quality. Okay. So for that technician who's the perfectionist, if they know that I'm trying to think of an example. Say, I'm trying to think of a business, an industry other than accounting. But the thing is, if they know that it takes only 4 hours to get a good result, but the quality result that they deliver is 6 hours, you bake the 6 hours into your pricing so that you're getting paid for the over delivery that you're automatically going to provide. And
Right. And
oftentimes, go ahead, please.
that's where the revenue's leaking.
Yes. That's where it's breaking. That's why I
Another
call it,
place. Yeah.
yes. And oftentimes the person who's over delivering because they want to do those 2 extra hours, right?
Yeah.
Quietly that eats at it. When you don't get paid for it, it eats at your soul. It causes you to shrink. It causes you to resent the business that you love. Because if you keep doing
Mhm.
it enough, it was so funny. I met someone today through networking, and she was talking about how she was working for Yale University and how she was coaching alumni and students into these great jobs, right? And she was making more money than she was. And she goes, hey, I had more qualifications, more skill, whatever. She goes, I checked my own advice. And she goes, I coached myself into my own business. And she's much happier. But there was a
Mhm.
disparity, right? And she was starting, even though she loved the job and she loved doing what she was doing, the container was wrong. So even though it was a job, the container was wrong. So she wasn't getting paid in a way that was reciprocating or equal to the value she was putting out. Same thing with our business. If you're putting out more value, but you're not getting paid for that, you're basically creating an imbalance. You're the energetic exchange, and money is energy. Everything is energy. If the
Mhm.
exchange is not even, you're basically putting a signal out there that it's okay that I'm giving more than I'm receiving. And then what starts happening is you start attracting those kinds of clients. And then you find yourself with a lot of high touch clients.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you're, wait a minute, this isn't why I left my job. I don't love my business. It compounds in quite a few different ways.
Yeah. And what happens, not only do you start to resent your business, but you start resenting your clients
Mhm.
and maybe your team members uh,
Yes.
because of something that you caused.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. It goes back to the person who's running the business. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So pricing as a signal,
Mhm.
you mentioned this. What does pricing actually reflect inside the business?
What does pricing reflect inside the business?
Yeah. I think we've been, go ahead.
No, go clarify your, if you don't mind clarifying the question for me, because my brain went somewhere else, but I think you're going in a different direction. That's okay.
It's weak pricing is
Yeah.
one.
Yes.
And what's upstream from pricing? And I think we just got it with the over delivery
Yep.
and those things. But does your pricing reflect the value of your business is really what the question is.
Okay. Does your pricing reflect? Well, your pricing is how you're funding your business, right? It
Hmm.
is. So if you're not funding your business adequately, your business can't function properly. Right. So one of the things that and this is a free diagnostic on my website. It's called the perfect pricing formula. And the reason why I
Hmm.
call it that is that you calculate your minimum aligned price. And your minimum aligned price is the floor. It is if you're charging below that, you're actually paying your clients to work for them, because your minimum aligned price is, in a nutshell, what you need to live well, what your business needs to cover its costs, but also allow for expansion. And if you
Right.
are bootstrapping it, right? That's not a way to grow your business. The whole world talks about detoxing and cutting expenses and all of that stuff. I actually like to look at it from a different way. I like to look at, how do we nourish our revenue? And how we nourish our revenue
Mm.
is by fixing our pricing. And how you fix your pricing is in your conversation, inside the work, by creating boundaries, right? And creating structure, processes that hold your service delivery, create consistent service delivery, and holds your business up, right? So everything needs to be Everything needs a process. I'll tell you, I developed a new role a couple months ago, and serve the process queen here, did not flush the role out. And
Mm,
what ended up happening is I had a misaligned, the person was good, don't get me wrong, they did a good job, but there was not clarity. So they would go off and do things that basically ate up hours. So I ended up having I was paying for activity, but I wasn't paying for result outcomes because I hadn't defined what the role outcomes were. And I was like, oh my goodness, here I am. And I'm still learning that every single thing needs a process and it needs to be defined. Otherwise, we're paying for activity. And go ahead. I wanted to say something,
yeah, I'm gonna layer on top of what you're saying. So
please.
you're paying for activity. You weren't paying for that result that you specified. So there had to be been something wrong in the process that you had
Hmm.
defined. Speaking of processes,
Yeah.
and we know that we are aligned in our thinking in some ways,
Yeah.
especially on systems. What are the maybe top two or three systems that
Hmm.
you would implement in a company to help hold up their pricing? And how does
Okay.
that look?
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm always asked, especially, and it supports the money conversation, is a lot of service providers don't consider themselves salespeople. So it's
Mhm.
about implementing a very solution. I call it solution selling. It's basically an evaluation, some kind of evaluation where someone can try you on for a minimum investment. So you gain
Mm,
trust, but you're also getting insight into the business. To me, this is, even though you're getting paid for the baseline, you're getting firsthand, intimate knowledge of that business, and you're able to see where you truly can add the value, right? So
mhm,
figure out some kind of diagnostic for yourself, some kind of baseline evaluation. And then when you go to report your findings, the next step is when you're doing that is you are taking them through, this is how we can help you. And you're taking them through the next set of services. And for us, that's oftentimes we call it partnering up. And it could be we're implementing a tool or we're cleaning things up. It just depends on your service. So then you have that group of services. And then when you're in that group of services or consulting fees, think of that as a bookend project from it with a start and an end. When you start to get to the end of that, you can say, and by the way, we can continue to help you with X, Y, and Z. So for me, that's a process. And I think if you
yeah.
can have a clear pathway on taking someone through how to work with you, that's incremented. You're not hitting them all with it on the same first day, but you're letting them know. Like in the first conversation I have, it's a discovery call, and I say, where we start with an evaluation. When I'm in the evaluation, or actually in the discovery call, I also say, and then when we have our findings, I said, I will let you know how we can best serve you if it's a fit. Pre-call that.
Yeah.
When we're in the partnering up phase, I say, and I pre-call that, like when we begin that, and I say, and we can, once we fix X, Y, and Z, we can continue to help you. So I'm pre-calling it, but that system came out of my need to feel more comfortable talking about my services. And for me, it was breaking it down into smaller steps. And I started having success. I started having success selling the evaluation because it was a lower ticket item. And I wasn't, when I first started my business, at a place where I felt comfortable enough holding a larger fee. Okay. So those evaluation fees used to be like under $500 back then.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that gave me confidence. Right. And then I started getting yeses, and then I would work them into the next set of fees. But for me, the trigger was I had already proved, because I was still proving who I was to the client because I felt I had to. And oftentimes that is the underlying story here. So this is what I talk about in the money conversation is the process supports the conversation. I could fall back onto the process, and I was able to get through being uncomfortable talking about money.
Yeah. So let's talk about that on that comfort level, because you are not the only person who is there. There's a lot of people out there who are really good at what they do,
Hmm.
but they don't consider themselves salespeople. But
Correct.
really, selling is everyone has to sell themselves.
Everyone has to.
But how did that feel? And when did you finally, first of all, how did it feel when you were faced with that? When you went out and you said you started selling?
Oh,
How did that
well,
feel to you?
I dreaded it. I absolutely dreaded it. I would talk about everything that I could do. First of all, I also think I was very guilty of this. We throw the spaghetti at the wall. We give them everything we can do. And then the person's it's way too much information. They can't absorb it. I learned that you have to really pare that back. And
Mhm.
you talked about an eighth grader. I talk about fifth graders, right? You want to
Yeah.
talk to someone like you're talking to a fifth grader, and you only want to give them so much information. I used to talk about everything that I can do, and then I would skip over. I would never bring up how much it costs until I was absolutely asked. And I was petrified. And at the very beginning, I left corporate and I went to an hourly model. And I was trading dollars for hours at the time. So that there's no value. Value wasn't even a word in my vocabulary at that point in time. So it was a recipe for disaster. It was terrifying. And what I what real the reality that happened for me is that I was working all the time. I wasn't making enough money, right? Like I'm like, for how hard I was working and what I was charging, and then I was really good at what I did. So because I'm charging by the hour, I was getting more efficient. So I was charging less hours. So this was like, okay, last month I made, let's just say $1,000, and now I'm making 500 with the same client. I can't keep doing this and I can't keep going out and finding business. There's not enough hours in the day. I was I got burnt out very quickly. So I stepped back, and that's when I figured out what would be a bite-size way to sample, because I was selling at the time just accounting services, and everyone, bookkeeping was one of those things, like it was a necessary evil. I actually
Mhm.
think that now a lot of people have a very different regard towards numbers and accounting services and all that fun stuff, which
Yeah.
different conversation, we won't go there. But I knew people needed it. I knew I could do it. I knew how to do it, right? Or my company did. So that's when I came up with the idea of the evaluation. And I was doing it anyway. But what was happening, Paul, is I was doing it. I was cleaning up the accounting file because I had to get it to a place where it would be efficient for my team to service it. And then I
Mhm.
would be afraid of going back and charging the client for the number of hours that it took to clean it up. So it was one of those things where I would prepare the invoice and I'd be like, oh my God, there's no way they're going to pay that. And I would shave off hours, and then I would send it. And it was like a pitch and pray, right? It was like I'd send it off and I'd be like, okay. And I would just be like this, put my head down until I actually got paid. And then oftentimes when you charge by the hour, that's when you're inviting in conversation. You're inviting in negotiation, because the further someone is away from a problem, the easier it is to solve. So somebody could look at your bill and go, why did that take you 5 hours to do that? And then you fumble over your words.
You have
You have
to
to
justify
justify.
it.
So you've put yourself in a position where you're justifying offering services. So if anyone takes nothing away else from this conversation today, do not charge by the hour. Create a package, a project fee, but figure out a way for you to get into that business and see what's going on so that you can price what you're doing properly, so that you're
Mhm.
getting paid for the quality that you're delivering, and an evaluation or a diagnostic will do that for you. It absolutely
Yeah,
will do that for you.
I love that. And in terms of what you just said, they call that. So you have this bundle of this service that you offer,
Mhm,
and there's something that you always do at the beginning,
mhm.
and what you do in your bundle, in your scope of services, there are little things that you could splinter
Yes.
into an offer. And
Yes.
Ryan Dice teaches this, digital marketer. You splinter off, we call it a lead magnet. It's a monkey's paw,
Hmm.
another word for it. But basically, you're going to do this anyway. So,
Correct.
so
Get paid
like
for it.
if you're selling SEO services, you could you could charge $9.95 or $4.95 or whatever to set up their Google business profile. That's it.
Yes. That's it.
So that would be it. You got to do it anyway. So
Correct. When
why
I get
not
paid.
start there and say, by the way, this is what we found, and here's how you can utilize it better. We can do this and
Correct.
this and that.
Correct.
You can go on to that instead of saying, here's my whole enchilada.
Yes.
You want the whole thing.
And the
Yeah.
other thing too is think about your evaluation as solving their pain point. They're coming to you for a reason. What's the
Mhm.
reason they're coming to you for? People come to me because they don't have clarity in their books, or their systems aren't talking to each other, or whatever it is, or their pricing. I actually consult with people on their pricing. They're coming to me and their pricing is off. So do an evaluation. There's a bite-size thing that you're doing. And yes, I'm gonna call this out. It's probably easy for you to do. It's the thing that's the easiest thing for you to do. And
Mhm.
like I can go into an accounting file, or I can talk to a client about about their financial function, and I can pretty much surmise within 15 minutes what's going on. That's because
Mhm.
that's my gift. You have that same gift with your service. Get paid for that gift. Get paid for that
Right.
gift. Yeah. Start small with yourself, because you heard me say I wasn't comfortable charging that big amount right up front. I had to grow into that. And that's the other piece of this, right? That we skirted around a little bit, but that's the other piece of
Yeah.
this. We have to
So
grow into. Go ahead.
what happened though? So you were working hourly, you were
Hmm.
getting burned out.
Yeah.
Maybe your loved ones were going, you're working too hard for this. You should go back to corporate. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that a
that
couple
that
times.
that probably happened. So then you started with this package. What happened next?
So what happened next is I started getting yeses. So because the leads wasn't the issue, right? It wasn't the
Yeah.
business, it was converting it. And I was the roadblock. So I started getting yeses, and then I started getting the project work. And next thing I knew, the revenue steadied out, and I had that pipeline coming in, and I started working less. And our clients, so a couple of things happened. Started where I was working less. The clients were nice. They were nice working relationships, because it also was creating alignment. I recognized that when I was in the evaluation phase, I was vetting them just as much as they were vetting me. And I
Mm.
could tell that there was a couple of clients where I'm like, no matter what, this is going to be a high touch. It's a great company and I would love to work on it, but the team isn't process oriented. They're not gonna follow the way we to do offer our services. It's not a match. And I would basically say that, right? Because I talked about this. The money conversation is about going from persuasion to alignment. And
Mhm.
when you're aligned in how you deliver your services in a way that allows you to have the quality, what ended up happening in my business within about a very short period of time, I would say within 8 months, our client base had transformed to clients that were a slightly larger business and than we had been working with. And they loved the process. They were dependable, there was consistency, and there was just, I want to say, peace and harmony within my team. Like my team started really thriving
Mhm.
because everything was predictable. And
Nice.
the pricing by fixing how we delivered the work inside the work and the conversation. And then the structure, we kept filling the gaps. We kept identifying the gaps and filling the gaps. And that's what happened. So we plugged our revenue leaks.
Yeah. And so as you grew, you had a system now
Hmm.
that wasn't broken. It
Correct.
started out broken and you were burned out. You
Yes.
fixed it, by having a systematic way of pricing it, delivering it,
Yes.
and also having different layers of services that
Yes.
not only did that increase your revenue, but it also it up-leveled your customers.
It up-leveled our customers and it up-leveled the team.
The team
Because
also.
so the team didn't change, but the team's skill level up-leveled because they weren't reacting. We were able to develop and nurture. Yeah. Yeah. It created the balance I was looking for. That because the reason why I left corporate is I was looking for work-life balance. And then I had created this nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's more I think you should shoot for harmony more than balance because there's
Yeah.
going to be ebbs and flows, and especially
Absolutely.
when you're an entrepreneur. So
Absolutely.
if someone is listening wants to look at their business differently, where should they start?
Okay, so I'm going to say that the first place that they should start is look at their pricing, look at how they're delivering their services, because there's most likely a mismatch between that. It's either, yeah, if they're able to articulate their pricing and they're semi comfortable there, maybe it's not actually breaking in the conversation at that point. It might be breaking inside the work or in the structure, in the processes. So, first place I audit is I'm looking at how they're delivering their services.
Huh.
Yeah.
And that's surprising. And really, your approach is to pricing and to the accounting side of the business and all that is really different than what I would expect. And that's why I had you back on the show.
Thank you.
Not only because of the awesome book, by the way, it's The Money Conversation. You can get it on Amazon. And probably you can go to somesolutions.com and or what is it?
Yeah.
Moneyconversation.net.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either one
Yeah.
will work. Yes.
So that's a pitch for in the middle of this thing. We're almost done here, but when you talk to leadership about pricing,
Mhm.
what changes when someone operates the way that you suggest?
What changes? I think what ends up happening is there's clarity, right? I approach numbers in a different way. I approach them in a way that creates clarity that doesn't break.
Yeah.
God, I've not been asked that question before. That's a great question. And I really will think on a soundbite answer for the future. But I think oftentimes businesses grow so fast that their financial systems don't grow with them. Okay. So what happens is the financial voice gets lost. Everyone knows numbers are important. We've got to look at our reports. And if cash is coming in the door, doesn't necessarily mean you're making money. But the owner is typically not a financial person. They're really good at what they do. So that's where they're
Mhm.
focusing. And the what's happening is it's getting, it's getting blurred. So everything's falling on one person's shoulder and it's getting blurred. And it's usually because the financial operations, right? The processes for financial operations are not there's holes in them, and that's creating revenue leaks because every single thing in a business touches revenue. Every single thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you talk to them about pricing to leadership
Mhm.
and they adopt your methods,
Mhm.
they start operating that way. What do they say?
What do they say? Gosh, they say a variety of things. Oftentimes, it depends on if you're the smaller solopreneur, they're like, "Oh my God, that resonates. I'm selling faster. I'm selling quicker. I'm bringing more business in. I've got to now look at getting a team," which is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
When you're coming at the business who grew really fast, is bigger, and they've got, say, employees and that kind of stuff, they're coming back and they're saying they have peace of mind because oftentimes they're coming to me though with an issue, Paul, that's not necessarily pricing, but it's something within the financial ops.
Like invoicing, where you have non-standard pricing for your items and
Yeah,
things like that. And then you have to look up the pricing and say, oh, this deal is this. And
correct.
we got it from this vendor instead of this vendor. And we've got to do all
Right.
this other stuff
Yep.
to reconcile the invoicing.
Yeah.
And
Or
so,
inventory, right? There could be
yeah.
an inventory issue and they're not
Mhm.
using standard cost. It and typically when the reporting's off, it's something the process is broken in the financial operations. It's not broken in the report. And reporting's just the result. It's the story.
Yeah.
And it can point you to where it is. Then that requires workflow changes. That requires them to sometimes rethink things. And then in those instances, pricing then becomes I'm going to call it the afterthought. So in a smaller business,
Yeah.
we're leading with the pricing. In a larger business, we're looking at the bigger symptoms because we do have to plug something there. And then we adjust the pricing on the back end. So that becomes like the cherry on the ice cream.
Yeah, I think that in a larger business, frequently what happens is their delivery of service is what's breaking down, and that's what's drifting, and it's causing
Yes,
them, and they can't scale because they don't have a delivery of service process.
correct. Or they're scaling too fast and they're hollowing out the business, and then it becomes a cash flow issue.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then they try to
yeah,
cut
true.
costs. Yeah.
So you've got this great new book that's come out.
hmm
What would you like me to have asked you that I didn't ask you that you
Uh,
want people to know about this book?
I think what I want people to know about this book that is when there's no clarity, people call it a money problem. When there's
Mhm.
clarity, it becomes a leadership decision. And this
Mhm.
book is a tool that really will help you lead money conversations. It will become your tool for self leadership in that area. And then what you're going to find is that when you can lead money more successfully in your business, you're going to be able to lead it more successfully in every other area of your life. The other thing I want to highlight here is this is not a money management tool. This is not
Right.
that. There's so many of those out there, and that is not those are wonderful and they're needed, but that's not what this is. This is a process. This is all about how to have conversations and the process in your business to talk about money in a way that supports you as opposed to jumping off the deep end and hoping your parachute opens. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. So when
No,
I used,
there's a soundbite for you.
there you go.
So I think we covered this, but what are three things our listeners can do today to start fixing their pricing issues?
Let's see here. The first thing they can do is pricing's not a numbers issue. It's a structure problem. Look at your structure. The second thing they can do is if you haven't raised your rates, send that email. And the third thing I'm going to say is buy my book. Go buy the
Yeah.
book. It's
Yeah, it's a good book.
it really will help you. Yes.
It's a great book.
Thank you.
So, and speaking of the book, how can people get it? How can they get it? I've already mentioned
Mhm.
Amazon, but you've got some other things going
Yes.
on.
So it's on a variety of platforms. It's at Barnes and Noble. You can go to my website if you'd like to start with a free chapter. You can go there and start with download a free chapter. And it's available not yet in audio, but we have it in softcover and digital editions.
Great. And you can also go to sumsolutions.com. It's SUM solutions.com
Yes.
and grab the perfect pricing formula just
Mhm.
to get into her world and check out what she's got. And you also, when you go there, you can connect with her on LinkedIn
Yes.
and other places and to
Yeah.
get to know her.
Actually, one other thing I'll tell you, inside the book, if you buy the book, there are some resources specifically to accompany the book that if you go to my website, there's a nervous system audio. I think it's an audio. It might be a video training on the nervous system and the money conversation. And then there's also I take all the scripts and I put them together in one place so you can download them and have them at your desk. So a quick reference whenever you're talking to a client.
Nice. And I think you should practice those scripts too,
Yes, in
right?
front of the mirror. Yes.
So as we close out today on this wonderful episode, remember when something feels off in your business, it's usually not just pricing, it's a system revealing itself.
Mm.
It could be many different kinds of systems. Today we've been talking about pricing systems. So remember, faith and action go hand in hand. So keep the pedal to the metal. Until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show, I'm Paul Guyon and Linda Hunt. Thank you so much for coming, the queen of processes.
Thank you very much for having me
Thank
back,
you.
Paul. Always a great conversation.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyon, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.